What if we could treat not just cancer or heart disease, but the one thing that makes them all more likely? Aging itself. It's a pretty revolutionary idea, and today we're going to unpack it based on a major review from the Journal of the American Medical Association.
For decades, medicine has had this one-by-one approach, right? We fight heart disease, we fight cancer, we fight diabetes. But what if the real target, the ultimate risk factor for literally all of them, has been hiding in plain sight this whole time?
And this is why it matters so much. By 2050, the number of U.S. adults over 65 is expected to jump by a staggering 33 million. That's a huge demographic wave, and it means the diseases of aging are about to become one of our greatest challenges. So we have to start asking if our old approach is still the right one.
So first, let's take a look at why our current medical model, which has had incredible successes, don't get me wrong, might be missing the bigger picture when it comes to keeping us healthy as we get older.
This slide just lays it out perfectly. Our current disease-specific approach is kind of like patching individual leaks in an old house. Geroscience, on the other hand, asks a totally different question. What if we could reinforce the entire foundation to stop those leaks from ever starting?
And this is what happens when you're just patching leaks. You get something called multimorbidity. I mean, look at this. Over half of adults over 60 are dealing with more than one chronic condition. For a huge chunk of them, it's 4 or more. Healthcare becomes a constant, exhausting game of whack-a-mole.
So this leads us to a pretty radical new idea. What if, instead of playing that whack-a-mole game with individual diseases, we could target the one process that's the single biggest risk factor for all of them? What if we could actually target aging itself?
And that is the central idea of geroscience. It's this whole field dedicated to intervening directly in the fundamental biological processes of aging. The goal is to delay or prevent not just one disease, but a whole bunch of them all at once.
Now, to get how this works, you have to grasp one really crucial distinction. There's your chronological age, the number of candles on your birthday cake. But then there's your biological age, which is a measure of how old your body's cells and tissues actually are, functionally. And believe me, those two numbers can be very different.
And this isn't just some interesting theory. It turns out the gap between those two ages is an incredibly powerful predictor of your health. Having a biological age that's just a few years ahead of your birthday age can dramatically increase your risk of disease and death. So, the ultimate goal of geroscience? It's to shrink that gap. Okay, so if we want to target biological aging, how would we actually do it? Let's pop the hood and explore the 4 most promising tools that scientists are working with right now. Right now, researchers are focusing on 4 main approaches: caloric restriction, a drug called metformin, a class of compounds known as rapalogs, and a really cool new strategy using senolytics. Let's start with the one we've known about the longest. First up, we have caloric restriction. This is the most studied intervention of the bunch. Basically, when you reduce energy intake without causing malnutrition, it seems to flip a switch in our cells, putting them into a protective, resource-saving mode that boosts repair and cools down inflammation.
Next is metformin, which is a really common diabetes drug. Scientists got interested in it because they noticed it affects some of the same cellular energy pathways as caloric restriction, but, without the super strict diet. The idea that you could get some of those benefits from a pill is, really exciting, though human trials are still ongoing.
Then you've got rapalogs. These drugs target a protein called mTOR. You can think of mTOR as a kind of general contractor for your cells. It tells them when to grow and divide. By dialing down mTOR's signal, these drugs basically tell the cells to stop building and start cleaning house. It's a process called autophagy. And in mice, this approach has delivered some of the most impressive lifespan extension results we've seen. And finally, we have senolytics. This is such a fascinating idea. These are drugs designed to hunt down and eliminate dysfunctional zombie cells. Seriously, these are old cells that have stopped dividing but refuse to die. Instead, they just hang around, pumping out inflammatory signals that damage all the healthy tissue around them. Now, all of this sounds absolutely incredible, right? But it's really important to pump the brakes a little and remember that we are at the very dawn of this new science. There are some major challenges ahead before any of this becomes a reality for you and me. So, the first huge hurdle is something called the translation gap. What works wonders in a mouse, which lives for maybe 3 years, doesn't just automatically work in a human who lives for 80. I mean, as you can see here, mice die from different things, and they don't naturally get a lot of the big human diseases we're trying to prevent, like Alzheimer's.
And then there's this massive regulatory roadblock. The FDA and other agencies, they approve drugs to treat specific diseases. But right now, aging itself isn't officially classified as a disease. So how do you even run a clinical trial for a condition that on paper doesn't exist? It makes everything incredibly difficult.
Okay, so with those big challenges in mind, what is the ultimate goal here? It isn't just about living longer. It's about fundamentally changing what it means to grow older.
And this brings us to what I think is the most crucial takeaway of all. The real goal here isn't a longer lifespan, it's a longer health span. The point is not just to add more years to your life, but to add more life to your years, to squeeze that period of sickness and disability at the end and stretch out the period of vibrant, healthy living for as long as possible. Just think about what that would mean. Success in Geroscience would boost our entire biological resilience. So it's not just a lower risk of cancer or heart disease. It could mean our bodies could fight off infections better, respond better to vaccines, recover faster from surgery, and just maintain our physical function for much, much longer. The authors of the review that inspired this explainer, they put it perfectly. They said, therapies that inhibit aging biology may slow the development and progression of disease and functional decline in humans. The bottom line is, the goal is to slow down both the diseases we all fear and the functional decline we've all just come to accept as inevitable. Which leaves us with this final, really provocative thought. Are we on the verge of the next great medical revolution? A fundamental shift away from treating the endless consequences of aging to finally, maybe, treating aging itself?